Much for joining us on another edition of Lunch Out Loud Ottawa. Of course, my name is Nick Pachuski.
And I'm Andrew Miller.
And we are the podcast in Ottawa that talks about the people, places, events, and music that make this such an incredible city. And we are so pleased to be here at the Claridge Homes Studio Central with Mr. Neil Malhotra. So I hope you stick around for that. But first, check this out. All right, so the band you heard there was Roberta Bondar, not the astronaut, the band from Ottawa. They'll be playing Blues Fest on July 13th at 1 p.m. at the Bell Stage. Unfortunately, not the Claridge stage, which would have been a lot more fitting for this episode. The song you heard there was Salt from this year's Hiss EP, which was released only on cassette. Well, you can hear it online, but it's the new trend of releasing albums on cassette, bringing back the 80s, the nostalgia. You might have heard that a bit in the song. So they'll also be playing the Ottawa Explosion Festival outside Club Saw on June 23rd at Free Show and June 28th at Yogi's on Main Street. You can see them a lot in and around the city. A very good live performance. So thank you so much for joining us today, Neil, VP of Claridge. So a lot of people see you in the community, see your great the condos and buildings that you're doing all over Ottawa. But they don't get to know you, get to know the big teddy bear that you are. So let us get to know you. Have you always been born and raised in Ottawa?
Yeah, pretty much. We were. My dad immigrated here in the mid '70s, early '70s, and we grew up out in Canada. And when we were about 89, 90, we moved downtown. We moved to Rockcliffe. And pretty much been here, other than for university, I've pretty much been here the rest of my time.
Which area of town are you living in now?
Now I'm back in Rockcliff, actually.
Back in Rockcliffe. Where'd you head to university?
Western.
Oh, yeah? What'd you end up taking there?
I did sort of a combination of some business classes and some urban geography, essentially, which was planning with more of a business framework to it.
Okay. So was it always a plan? Your father started.
It was always a potential plan. Yeah.
Okay.
It's always been a family business, but whether I ended up here or not wasn't sure.
So when you were younger, you weren't.
School.
Yeah. When you were younger, you weren't quite sure if this was going to be what you wanted to do.
I spent a lot of time here, but it was a little different at that time. The scope of the business was, and the size of the business was a little different back then. So there was a pretty good chance I was coming into it, but I wasn't totally sure until I.
Did the university help give you a framework of that this is what you wanted to do?
No.
Or is it more experience? Yeah, no. That's like most people we talk to about.
For me, university was more what happened outside of class and inside class. So
Yeah.
I was involved in all sorts of things. That's where it's 15 class hours, but it's been 60 hours at campus between. I was involved in the Western had a daily newspaper. I was involved in that. And student government.
A daily newspaper?
Yeah, they ran their student newspaper ran 4 days a week.
Holy!
Yeah, it's a full-time job for people.
Wow.
So what did you do for the paper there then?
Oh, I spent editing, writing. I did a year as a photo editor for them.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I was just involved.
Yeah.
A lot of edits, and then the Western newspaper, the alumni out of it is like off the charts. I mean, if you look at there are a few writers even at the Citizen now that are from there, Matt Pearson and a couple other guys I was with. Aaron Weary, who's a big federal correspondent for Maclean's. And those are just guys I went with. If you look back in the history of the Western Gazette, probably about half the nationally known journalists come from there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, all the sports writers, everybody. Pretty interesting, like the Elliot Friedmans and Steve Simmons, all those guys.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
and
so Western's journalism program sort of, and Carleton's were the top two. But in the undergrad, the newspaper was like off the charts.
Incredible. I did not know that.
Great.
What about places you hang out with? Where do you like to frequent in Ottawa? Maybe places that have changed?
Well, now it's different. I have a young family, so I basically spend time at the office and at home.
But if you're going
for
out...
the most part, but...
treating yourself out to a nice dinner or something?
Yeah, I mean, most time I spent out would be in the Bard Market, different places, and I've sort of become a really big kind of fan of Hindenburg in the last couple of years, as it's evolved. Not, I don't necessarily spend a lot of time there, but just in the way it's the first neighborhood that ever really transformed really quickly in Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
Like Westboro didn't really transform overnight, and Glebe and some of the older neighborhoods have always just sort of been around. They've sort of grown up slowly. But Hindenburg, you went from like hookers on the street 7 years ago.
Yeah. There was
Like,
more of a
like
drastic
2 or 3
change.
It was a very drastic, quick
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
The first time we went out there, we have a project that we did some zoning work on a few years ago, or 2 years ago. The first time we went to a community meeting, there was nothing there. Like 3 months later, we went back and all the first 10 restaurants had opened up and streets were packed and you couldn't find parking. So it was fast.
Yeah.
And, those are kind of the 2 neighbors I sort of...
Very active community group there as well.
Very active.
So what are some other fun things that you like to do in Ottawa? I mean, activity-wise, obviously having a young family, you must turn around and do some things like you guys are skating on the canal or anything.
Yeah, nice little Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so you get, we're lucky we have the National Museums here. That stuff's great. We spend a lot of time doing that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
With the kids, my kids are just they're really young.
Oh, okay.
5 and 3, and
They're not throwing footballs or anything yet.
Well, they're starting sports now and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they are starting to spend a lot of time up in the Gatineau parks.
Okay.
And up at Fortune, and some winter they're skiing, and summer they're starting to go kind of hiking up in the hills, and we do some stuff like that. But not a lot of free time, so we run around kids' activities and stuff like that.
So it's been a nice little change.
Yeah, it's a little different.
It's changed for you. Is that starting to change maybe your view of work a bit? Changing things more? No?
No, it doesn't change your work. I think it's my brother's in a similar situation, same kind of aged kid, so I think it probably allows us to contemplate a little bit more with sort of, families required in housing. And, I think with time, sort of allows, we're not there as a city yet where families are overly living in apartment buildings, but,
Mm-hmm.
with a little bit of time, we'll probably have a better understanding of, what are the things that will make that work when the time comes, because it's coming to the point where people can't afford to live downtown unless they buy an apartment.
Yeah.
Well, there's some people who can, and there's some people who can't.
Yeah.
But the majority of people who are on a, household income of, $80,000 to $120,000, they can't, they're not going to be able to pay $1 million for a house.
Exactly.
So it's coming in time, it'll never be New York City.
Yeah.
But, it's in Toronto, the pattern started. At some point it'll start here.
Yeah. That's what we're hoping. So I guess we'll start talking a bit about Claridge Homes. Brief history about Claridge Homes. How did it become known as one of the most one of the biggest condo developers in Ottawa?
Yeah. So our history, I mean, it's kind of funny, but so my father started as a boutique condo builder, and his first couple of projects, he did them in the early 80s, and actually, so even prior to that, he was actually employed at the City of Ottawa. He's a structural engineer, and he worked in their building review department. So he did a couple of condo projects, and then in the late 80s, there's a little bit of a drastic change in the real estate market here, and I was kind of fortunate. Was able to sort of kind of nimble and ended up sort of moving in towards more. He did a lot of social housing with the government at the time. He was in a good position, and that's when I started getting into the home building business. And so by that point, the condo side sort of the market didn't exist in Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
Through the late 80s to the late 90s, there was, I don't know if there was any condo development. Very limited, very, very limited, 100 units a year or something citywide. So Claridge Homes started building. We we're in the suburbs, and, still pretty significant the amount of work we do in the suburbs.
Yeah.
We do more, we still build more houses than condos each year.
Mm-hmm.
Most years. Not every year, but most years. And, we started evolving. We're just sort of, maybe we just had our fingers on the pulse a little faster than everybody else. And because it was our background, it was, logical. You see our office is in Centertown. We're you live in Rockland, you're essentially downtown. So we just sort of here and sort of probably had a better feel for it, sort of at the start of it.
Excellent. And like some of the earliest projects, some of the condos right down here, recognizable. Have we changed any of them?
Well, like so probably the most recognizable one, still one of the more recognizable ones in town is what's it called? It's like 123 Echo, it's 10 Main Street, like it's right at the corner of Main and that most people are surprised when they find out we did that one.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's small. And that's sort of the scale of the projects he was doing in the early 80s.
What was the first development for housing that you guys put out?
The first condo was, I can't remember the name, but it's right at the corner of Clarence and Cumberland. So it's like an old 8-story thing that's next to the gas station and all the shelters and stuff are behind it.
Yeah.
That was the first one he had done. Back then, the Environment was a pretty rough place.
How many people is Claridge employing right now? With contractors and everyone, with all the construction going on?
Outside of with the contractors, I
no idea.
As or somewhere like it's probably around 1,000 or so. We Claridge Homes team is about 150 people.
Okay.
And then we have sort of another business we're involved in for retirement homes. That's sort of a bigger company. That's sort of about 300 people now, and sort of growing pretty fast. So, all said, our net employment is probably somewhere 1,200, 1,300 jobs in the city.
Wow. Has that exploded in recent years? Is that?
Yeah, well, the retirement homes they're very labor intensive. So they're like a lot of people, except there's 300 people in 2 retirement homes. But in terms of our construction side, it's probably pretty steady now for 9-10 years. We've sort of been building at this volume for 9-10 years.
Yeah.
It takes some up or downs, but delivering 700-800 units in a year is not out of the question with the team we have.
Wow.
Now, Claridge focus. Are you focused solely in Ottawa? Do you have other cities that you've been looking into?
We were involved once upon a time in South Florida. We're not like actively looking.
Yeah.
In our business more than anything, it's there's a lot of relationship management involved.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of you got to be able to deal with municipalities. You got to be able to. The construction industry is not like other industries. It's a lot of personal relationships involved.
So it's pretty hard to crack into a new city.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. You can't do things the same way you do them, and you don't have the relationship. So it's not as simple. We have been involved in other places, and it's difficult to manage from a distance.
Yeah, I guess so.
So it really takes personal involvement. For us, we're between my father, my brother, and myself. We're involved in pretty much every aspect of business. It's not really anything that's we don't really have our fingers into in here. So so it's just a challenge that. But if opportunities come, we look at them, and I'm sure at some point we'll be doing some stuff somewhere. I don't know where.
Yeah, excellent. So I guess we'll talk just a bit about a few. A lot of people were asking me before the interview, like, let's touch on different projects because that's what a lot of people are interested in. So the first, a lot of people always love talking about the LeBreton Flats project. I've done several mortgages for people in those areas, and they love it. So that's from the people that are in those condos. They just love the Ottawa River being there. But for people outside of it, they think, well, there's a lot of empty land, and what can we be doing? So, what have been the successes, maybe some of the constraints that have happened there, and why should people look forward to the LeBreton Flats project and everything in that area?
Well, I think it's the first thing I think people don't understand is it's not most people see it driving by, and it's not really meant to be. It's not meant to be something for people to drive by.
Yeah, it's
a very pedestrian oriented environment. That being said, there's a bunch of things that still have to happen down there. That some are in our control and some aren't. There's issues that relate to like the LRT. So every time they've done something different with the LRT, it stops what's going to happen on Booth Street, because Booth Street, they have to figure out, is Booth Street going to be at level A, level B, or level C?
Yeah.
which is pretty fundamentally important to figuring out where you're going to build.
Exactly.
If you don't know where the street's going to be.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to put a front door.
They were thinking of going through the escarpment before, and so there's been so many designs with that.
That have happened at that end, and then there's another piece where we sort of are involved in the residential piece of it, and we're not really involved in the commercial pieces. And there's some things that have to happen down there commercially to make it sort of the vision. I mean, it's not
a walkable vision.
Yeah, the walkable vision, right? So you need to have grocery stores and restaurants and stuff like that start coming, and for them to come, they need a certain population, and it's sort of a chicken and egg thing that sort of has to happen. That being said, because of it's right downtown, if there, impetus is there to put commercial, there's probably those things will come very quickly.
Exactly.
But when you're dealing, it's a federal government environment. They have certain ideas. They, and their ideas don't necessarily match up with what other people in the federal government think, and you get this sort of thing that goes on. So as a lot of it's been sort of probably held up because Public Works was trying to figure out how they were going to plan Ottawa, where the employment was going to be in the next 50-year horizon, essentially. And they've sort of made their plan and picked the places they're going, and that sort of will probably free up Roberta to sort of develop a little differently now.
Yeah.
But so you got these things that need to happen, and they're going to happen with time. It's just it's difficult for people to understand it when there's so much going on around it. So. Like I said, I've never met anybody who's in there that's unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
They're all extremely happy. They're essentially pioneers, and they get it. And each phase sort of will build upon that, and it'll be an exciting place. And hopefully, sooner than later, we'll be able to get those commercial things.
I hope as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So, you're on phase 3 of that one? Is
yes.
it phase 3? Is that under construction yet, or very soon to start construction?
No, it's under construction.
It is under construction. Yeah. That's what I thought. Excellent. So actually, we'll just move on to a quick break and hear one more song from Roberta Bondar. So this is going to be a clip from Night Danger, which is from their new EP, the Hiss EP. So we'll be right back with Neil Malhotra from Claridge Homes. All right, so that was Night Danger by Roberta Bondar, not the astronaut.
But they are out of this world.
So we're here with Neil Malhotra from Claridge Homes, and of course, a lot of changes, a lot of meetings with the planning committee, with a lot of approvals in the past few months.
Yeah.
And of course, the biggest one in all aspects is the Claridge Icon, which will be coming to Dow's Lake, hopefully at the end of 2016, welcoming into 2017 for the 150th anniversary. There's going to be tons of tourists coming down, so that's going to be a huge thing that they're going to be seeing in the future. So, and the sales center is now open. So if you can tell us a bit about how that vision came to happen, why you wanted to, where you saw the availability to construct the largest building in Ottawa, and I guess sediment and how this came about, I guess.
Yeah, and you must have faced some trials and tribulations trying to get that together, I think. I hear it was quite a task, but... Well,
Claridge has always seen that because they're always been the pioneers on several different aspects in this city. So in this city that, in the past it has feared change, but I think that sentiment is changing a lot more with people embracing the change and going, you know what, we can be this more incredible city. So
yeah, no, there's definitely a change in the local environment. I mean, the 45-story building is one of the easier zonings we've probably done.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's we got involved down there. I don't know, it was a few years ago now, 2-3 years ago, and the city had sort of started dealing with the Soho Italian project at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So they'd sort of figured a few things out about the area. They hadn't figured everything out, but they'd figured out a few things, and they sort of realized that we could put some density down here, and they wanted to see it, but they wanted to see it closer to Carling, maybe more so than where Soho Italia was. They accepted Soho Italia in the end, but it's sort of buffer because it's a pretty important area that you don't want to drastically change the character of Preston.
Yeah.
So they they sort of said to us, we'll look at something, but come back but you gotta push the envelope a little bit on some other things as you do it. So we sort of took that to heart, and we ended up taking a little bit more time than we normally would in a project, and we sort of went through a process where I don't know. I think we brought in about 15 different architects from across the world.
And you ended up with David Ponte.
Yeah, we ended up with Pontarini, but we went through like the biggest names in the world. Like it was not a regular project,
How was this different for Claire? Like,
well,
it must have been totally different.
Right?
You started off as a smaller company, now you're larger. Now you're interviewing the largest architects in the world to do a project. That must have been very interesting.
We spent a day with Foster and Associates. They're one of the biggest. They're probably the biggest. Norman Foster was considered probably the best architect of our time, and we spent time with a couple other star architects, and we spent time with. And what ended up happening was really just landed on the Canadian architects for what the project was going to be with the best architects, because these guys come from England or from New York or whatever. They're not used to designing the kind of the size of units that are selling in Canada.
Mm-hmm. So larger, smaller?
Smaller. They're used to designing 2,000-3,000 square foot units.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different animal. So it's really, the best work in the world's really coming out of Toronto. So there are a couple of Toronto architects and that we really liked through the project in the end. We selected HP on this one, and we put another firm, Architects Alliance, on another project that we'll be bringing sort of to for development review shortly. And they're the best at when it comes to doing condominiums anywhere. So it's they create some unique things, and they're starting to be challenged. Like they're going through the same issues in Toronto, because Toronto went through this big condo boom, but they really weren't on top of it. So it's pretty. There's a lot of blandness to it. But you've seen the last 2-3 years in Toronto, it's drastically changed.
Yeah.
People are
they're taking more pride in the different types of
Toronto
large
realized
structures.
Something that the city of Ottawa has probably realized, and that if you put some challenges in front of the development community, they will produce it. But you gotta sort of give them the opportunity to have some density and potentially some height. So. And that's sort of what's happened. So it's good. And it's a good notion the city's trying to present down there, and that they want to create almost like a second downtown and create an area that maybe is free from the challenges that our current downtown presents us, and allow some taller buildings, but bring in a lot of things that give positive streetscapes and good environments, and blossom a community that might be. It's not going to be like King West, but at least have that sort of
that feel to it. Sort of
not the feel, but that has at least the number of people moving down there, and just the gentrification that happened down there, and the speed it happens.
Yeah.
A lot of it's about speed. Sometimes, like making things happen very quickly is important, because it's sort of the momentum sort of carries these neighborhoods to sort of starting or hitting a wall.
That's it. And there's still going to be a ton of green space there too, around Dow's Lake.
Well, that's one of the benefits down there. Is you've got the experimental farm, you've got Dow's Lake, and you've got the Arboretum. These things, it's got these pieces that are there, and so it's already got a huge employment base with the feds and the SACCO buildings. So it's got a lot of the other pieces, so it makes it a really good place to be putting people. And that's sort of what I think everyone understands. And with Carling, if they can never, get all the stretch of Carling going and sort of become a better environment, then it'll start moving down the whole way, right? Yeah. And Carling's going from there to Canada. Like it's a big long street that doesn't have a lot going on to it. So it's it's a start. Yeah. It's a good start.
I like it. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah. Now you guys recently purchased also the block where the Metro is on Rideau. Is that going to be similar to the other towers you got going on there, or
I don't know.
going to be something different?
It's a long ways away.
Yeah, it's quite a bit of ways now.
Yeah, it's several years away. I think it'll be. Sit here today, I probably see it being not so much like what's being built on Rideau Street right now, but it's probably be a little smaller in scale, in the size of the tower plates and things like that. It'll be sort of start looking more like how Tribeca looks in the sky, where the buildings are a little smaller and a little bit more light coming through and those types of things. But who knows? I mean, that's years away. Turn into an office building, it could be all sorts of things.
Awesome.
It's a pretty flexible place.
Right on. When we were just talking, sorry, real quick, 45 stories, so that's going to be the tallest in Ottawa. Do you know what the current tallest building is in Ottawa then?
Oh, it's one of the government buildings.
Bell building or something like that.
It's Place Bell, where it's
and it's at
I forget the name. There's one at the east end of downtown.
Is it only like 40 stories? Are you like blowing the tallest out of the water?
Well, so the highest in downtown Ottawa is probably it's like 115 or 120 meters.
Okay.
I'll check it up on Wikipedia.
Gotcha.
Sure, it's on Wikipedia, but and then there's something a little higher on the Gatto side. That's in the 120 meter range, and ours is about 143. So,
Boom.
Okay.
so it's bigger. It's not like it's not like hundreds of stories, but it's bigger, and if it's the tallest, it's the tallest. If it's not, it doesn't really bother.
Whatever, right?
What trends have you seen in the past 5 years, and what buyers are looking for? Like lower condo fees, I see that a lot. Different types of amenities, how have those changed? The number of amenities that people are looking for to lower the condo fees, or maybe privatize them in the condos. Different types of materials, that sort of thing.
I think people for sure. I mean, I think it's very easy. I mean, all our competitors are pretty good at marketing, all these features and whatnot, but it's pretty easy to get caught up in buying into that vision and not understanding like the condo fee and the continuing cost that goes on with with having some of these things. So we always take the approach of keeping that in mind. Like for us, keeping condo fees in check is a big deal.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody realizes the developer's actually kind of on the hook if the condo fees aren't met in the first year. So we sort of look at it with that sort of that lens to it, that if you own a quarter of the building and you're responsible, what would you be happy with? So you look at that and we make sure that they're not, and that's an important thing. And because the other part of it is that what will happen is if they're not low to start with, the first condo corporation will make them low, and they'll start getting rid of those things. So it's very important, I think, that people understand that the checks those things. But it's almost more what's happening outside the door is more important than inside the buildings at this point. So it's really about what the neighborhood's like, and that's pretty much it.
Getting out there.
Are you worried? There's been some talk about a bursting bubble of condo markets in Toronto and Vancouver. Are you worried about that at all in Ottawa?
No, I don't. It's not a burst. I mean, it's like you gotta understand. Toronto is 25,000 units a year now. Ottawa is 1,500 units a year. So it's a whole different thing. Condo is more than 50% of the total housing market, period, in Toronto. Yeah. And Ottawa is like 20%. So it's very different. Ottawa simply just functions different economically, always does. So it's not a burst. No one's it's not in a position to burst. The Toronto and Ottawa are actually both, they're supported by the rental markets more than anything at this stage. When you have a vacancy rate that's under 1%. That's right. In rental apartments, there's going to be construction. In the U.S., rental buildings start getting built in a city when there's 7% vacancy. Yeah. So it won't be a burst. I mean, there'll be peaks and valleys, and you sort of every time you sort of hit a kind of a new price threshold, there's sort of a flattening for a little while. I mean, we've seen it a few times in the last 10 years where there's no way you can get to $300 a foot. It did. Now it's sort of it pauses, and well, it's not going to get to $350, and it gets to $350, and then things kind of flatten out, and then it goes to $4, and it's getting to $450, and now it's getting to $5, and so there's always there's an upset at some point, but Canadian real estate in general is very cheap compared to most international places. That's why Toronto's become so popular with international people. Is
they're blown away with
put
where
the
their money
money
can go. Yeah.
$2,500 a foot in New York, you can put it at $700 a foot in Toronto. It's
And like you said, if the rental market's stronger,
yeah, well, the
it's a
rental market's
no-brainer,
strong. They've got the big immigration, so it's like the untold story in Ottawa right now is the government actually hired more people than they fired last year.
Yeah. Well, that's right. And the media...
They don't talk about it because they're trying to impress everybody out west about how people are firing. But it's the reality is they got rid of a bunch of people who are now collecting pensions and getting contract work from the government.
Yeah.
They replaced them with a bunch of young people who are eventually going to become home buyers. So it should be a good news story, but it's you deal with what all the negativity is. And
well, that's it. The media likes to portray a little bit.
Well, the media does. And,
for
a year, the government was portraying a pretty negative aspect too.
Yeah.
So it's tough to see a burst.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say there's a burst coming. I think there'll be land. We're in a soft land.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Hear that, Ottawa? Everything's going to be okay.
How is Tribeca moving?
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It's pretty exciting to watch come out of the
It has.
ground. I mean, I think
That was 7 stories below?
Yeah, it was 7 stories below and it's 27, 28 stories up, and it's pretty interesting. It's probably the first building in town that's been done sort of with the smaller floor plates and building separations and sort of those things, and it's I think it's I was talking to a city planner the other day, and we both decided it was too short. It looks short now when you leave our office and you walk back downtown, and you'll see it kind of looks short when you're looking at it from this side.
Yeah.
Should make it taller.
Yeah.
When's that going to be completed?
I think it's the end of this year.
End of this year, moving in. Excellent.
Early next year.
So
mix.
Here you have it for
early next year, maybe.
There you go. And just one last topic to touch on. I know I attend a lot of community association meetings. I like to get a pulse of what's going on. Do you feel Claridge is being a lot more responsive towards community groups, listening to what the community groups are saying? Do you see a change in the way development and the city and the community associations are going to start working with each other, especially with the official plans and development plans moving forward?
I don't know. It's tough to say. I think there's 3 groups involved. And then you have a development application. You've got the city, you've got the developer, and you've got the community association. Sometimes it seems like there's more common ground than usually there is a lot of common ground. But community associations like the city, there's kind of political beasts. And what happens is, I don't know, sometimes people don't understand everything. So, I mean, I think it's like a lot of this community association people all have a very good understanding of development and city goals and targets, but I think then they represent a lot of people who might not. So, it's tough to deal with the mob sometimes.
Yeah.
There's parts of common ground, but I don't know if you ever really get sort of away from that NIMBYism and,
NIMBYism, for anybody, is not in my backyard.
Yeah. So it's I don't know.
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
Like
people are always going to fear change a little bit, regardless, and I think.
Yeah. It's just it's people either don't understand. I mean, they either don't understand or they just don't like the change sometimes. I mean,
that's and that sucks. But well, hopefully with the official plan and everything that Peter Hume wants done by June 2014, he wants to have the zoning bylaws to pretty much be in place, so people in the community know. Well, especially and developers.
That doesn't stop. That doesn't ever stop people from
spot zoning,
making a submission for a spot zoning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the other thing it doesn't do, and happens sometimes, like the tighter you try and make it, the more stuff starts squeezing out, and the more mistakes, and it's fine to say certainty, but it's more to it than that. And it's planning isn't it's not static. It's not things change every day. Technology changes every day. I mean, we live totally different than we did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So and we're gonna in 5 years from now it'll be totally different. So you just can't really say, well, we're just gonna set a new zoning for everybody and that's it.
Yeah.
It won't make a difference.
So should people in Ottawa be excited about the future of buildings and
sure, yeah. I mean,
exciting times?
Well, yeah, we're starting to become a city, which we haven't been for before.
Yeah.
You know, you've got a population that's big, and you have some things that are happening in other cities now where you're doing some interesting things, like, you know, I don't know good examples, but I mean, the football stadiums, you know, reasonable example where you hopefully have an LRT system, but more on the cultural side, I think there's a lot more interesting stuff happening. There's a lot more young people sort of, you know, a lot more
Creating
events,
things.
creating, you know, things happening. You know, like we have a sort of a little fun thing this afternoon happening at 700 Sussex with Shopify, where
The pop-up.
we've teamed up with them to do a pop-up store for the next 3 days.
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, it'll be fun. But these little things are starting to happen in Ottawa that aren't, and they don't seem so like.
They're actually on our show next week.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So say hi to them for.
Yeah, for sure.
give us a good review so Harley and Daniel will want to come
on.
on.
A lot of fun. You know, they're trying to do some different things, and it's not. I don't know.
It's never been done before, so hopefully we embrace it.
Different things, but like, you know, these things are happening now. It's more organic, and it's being, you know, set up by people, and it's not so like government.
That's right.
Driven, and it's not like.
Hopefully, we'll get away from that stigma that people have that we're just a government town, boring.
Yeah, that's part of it. You know, it's like one thing when, you know, it's just, you know, the community is generating things. I don't think it really happened with the same volume before.
Yeah.
You're seeing all sorts of different little festivals pop up. You know,
we have a ton of those.
Together and started the craft beer festival. And,
yeah, that's coming up too, eh?
Tons of stuff.
All the different things. You know, not a lot of it happened before.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty.
And you're a big part of that. Claridge is a huge part of it. But thanks so
much.
Thanks so much, Neil, for joining us. It's very informative. I hope people have a clear aspect of where Claridge is going, as always. And if not, you're in the news almost every day. So, do you want to stick around? We got 3 events to talk to. Oh, I want one of those too.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, those things are interesting. Events this weekend. We got Westfest. Yeah, have you ever made it out to Westfest?
Once or twice. Yeah.
It's good times.
Yeah, it's fun.
Good times. The weather doesn't look too good. We got Elliott Brood playing on Friday, 50 Men on Sunday, Sky Diggers on Saturday. So that's going to be fun. 14-block street party. Yep. Tons of stores. So get out there, support local.
Popify. Don't forget the Popify.
Popify. That's going to be going on Friday and Saturday. 700 Sussex. So a lot of local businesses that use the Shopify platform, but they're trying out the experiment of actually having a storefront for a little bit.
Electric powwow on Saturday as well.
Yeah, so back from a tour across the United States. Great reviews yet again. And you got the Magnetic North Theater Festival at the NAC starting Friday. So tons of comedy, all kinds of plays that are going on. So next week we have the lads from Shopify. I know I said that last week. I'm sorry about that. I was wrong as always. And the last song we'll hear is Crave You from their 2012 self-titled EP. So I hope you join us next week. It's going to be a lot of fun. Have a great weekend.
Later.
Bye.